Welcome to Feed Your Lion. I'm Dr. Jodelle Yount, and I'm here to aid you in the mastery of total health, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial. So prepare to have your wellness tank filled up with this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Feed Your Lion podcast. Today is our third week of the month, so we're going to do an educational topic. And I try to pick things that you guys are interested in or I'm seeing a lot, either in practice, in life, whatnot. So we're going to talk today about ticks because it is tick season, and I've seen a whole lot of tick-borne illnesses, and I want to focus today specifically on alpha-gal. So I'm going to do a little mini lecture on alpha-gal today and tick disease in general, how that's different. Right now, what's fascinating about this is we're seeing this explosion of tick-borne illnesses, specifically alpha-gal. We were looking this up. They didn't even see alpha-gal till like the early 2000s. Now, it could have been around a long time before that, but they actually found it when they were studying like a certain type of cancer drug was causing an allergy to the sugar molecule, and they were finding these same people had this reaction to meat. So that's when they first, officially discovered alpha-gal. But it's insane the numbers they're seeing now. I was just looking at like a stat from Massachusetts where they had like just a couple cases the last couple years, and then this year it's like 780 cases. They're saying these tick-borne illnesses are increasing like 100-fold. So when I was trying to figure out like why they're saying these are increasing, a lot of it they're saying has to do with climate change, that the tick vectors are migrating, like we're having, ticks in places that they weren't normally because of these climate changes. Now you ask some conspiracy theorists, and they might tell you that we're having a man-made release of ticks because they're wanting to develop more vaccines that they can make billions of dollars off of. Who's right and who's wrong? I don't know, but does that sound too crazy to me? Not really, but they are, in fact, developing and actively developing vaccines toward things like Lyme. I'm sure alpha-gal will be in the pike. But so I don't know. Is there something wonky going up with this? Is it really just climate and changes in the, where the ticks are going? I don't know. But the bottom line is there's a huge increase in the number of these tick-related illnesses. Still to this day, right now, the most common tick-related illness is still from Lyme disease. And, they're saying, there's hundreds of thousands of these cases across the U.S. every year. Lyme can be confusing because it can present with different symptoms. It can affect your cardiovascular system. It can affect your joints and your bones. It can affect your brain. Like there's lots of different presentations with Lyme, so that can be a little confusing. I will tell you guys, Lyme originates from those the ixoides, if I'm saying that right, but it's your deer ticks, okay? And I'm going to have Lainey, I said deer ticks, black-legged ticks, I'm sorry. They're from your black-legged ticks. And I'm going to have Lainey, our video girl, put up pictures of what these things look like. These ixoides species are pretty common. They do some other tick-related illnesses like anaplasmosis, babiosis. There's other tick-related illnesses from these black-legged ticks as well, okay? The alpha-gal specifically, that one is totally different from the Lyme disease and some of these other ones, as it's not from an actual like bacteria, which is what you see with Lyme. It's from a bacteria. Alpha-gal is actually from an immune reaction. It's the same as you would see with like food sensitivities. It's an IgE mediated reaction, okay? So you're introduced to this alpha-gal sugar molecule through the saliva, and this is from the Lone Star tick. So again, I'm going to put up a picture of what the Lone Star tick looks like, but you can see a little dot in the center of its body, and that's, looks like Texas. That's why they call it the Lone Star tick, because of the flag there. But that introduces with its saliva this alpha-gal sugar molecule, okay? And it's like alpha galactose 1,3 galactose, something like this is the actual sugar molecule. So your body sees that, and it takes it as a foreign invader, and it develops these antibodies to that sugar molecule. It's the same thing you're going to see in all the red meats, your wild game, your beefs, okay, lamb, venison, all of those type of things carry the same molecule then. So then over time, you get this delayed sensitivity. A few things I want to point out about this, it's a little different. With the alpha-gal, as soon as that tick bites you and its saliva is introduced, you are at risk for getting alpha-gal. Is everybody going to develop this? No. It can actually be like less than 10%. We don't really, I don't know the exact, like how many people that get bit are going to develop this. And it actually depends on the sensitization rate of the area you're in too. So that's going to vary. But you have a chance of it the minute that tick is really attached and the saliva enters the bloodstream, okay? Now this is different from Lyme. Lyme, if you get that tick off fully within 24 hours, your chances of getting Lyme are like super low. We don't even have to really treat, okay? It's really if it's been on there for like 24 hours or longer that you're going to develop, like you have an increased risk of developing Lyme. So that's kind of a different thing and a little more scary. I mean, the minute that tick attaches, your chances, you can have a chance of getting alpha-gal, which is different than some of the others, okay? So with alpha-gal, the other thing that's big, with a general food sensitivity, usually you're going to have that histamine response like the minute you eat the food. With alpha-gal, there's a delay. It can be a delay of like up to 8 hours even from the time that you eat something like generally like a red meat or something like that. That you can trigger this reaction. So it's got a delayed response compared to a like typical food allergy. So that's another way it's different from some of these other things. The other thing is you have this latent period while your body is building up antibodies to the sugar. So 2 to 6 weeks, it could be delayed before you actually have your first reaction. It may be longer. Some people are several months. So it can be kind of hard. People may misdiagnose that at first because you're having a delay from the time the tick bit you, several weeks to even months. And also, again, with the food, it's several hours after, it's not immediately following. So that can be confused with some other allergy symptoms and things. So it can be a little delay there in diagnosis with the alpha-gal. What else do I want to tell you about this? So other things that cause food issues, or it's not just food. You can also have certain vaccines, certain medications, even certain capsules. Like think about like those gelatin capsules and things like that. Those can contain beef, so those can actually set off their reactions as well. Also, certain dairy products can do it too. So it's not just red meat. That's like the biggest category. Other tick-related illnesses, you have your dog ticks, okay? Those are responsible for like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which you develop like rash, fevers, and headaches are the typical symptoms. You see that was another big one, the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Both like Lyme, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, a lot of the other ones, doxycycline tends to be the first line treatment on a lot of those. And again, with things like Lyme, you can have long-term effects, especially if this isn't addressed or treated right away. And it can, honestly, even though we're talking about alpha-gal being the truly like food immune-mediated, IgE like mode instead of like bacterial parasites, you still can get like an immune response because you're destabilizing a lot of the histamines and things like that when you have a prolonged like Lyme or another tick-borne illness. So it still can activate immune responses, but that's not the primary thing, like the developing of the antibodies to the sugar molecule with alpha-gal. So let's talk a little bit about prevention of alpha-gal. You've got a lot of tick stuff, okay? You really want to make sure if you're going to be out in the woods, I know this is common sense, but wear like lighter clothes so you can see if a tick crawls on you. I've seen people that like will use the tape around their ankles and stuff like that to either catch ticks and prevent them from crawling up, like the double-sided tape. And then also like the bug sprays and stuff, try to go more natural. I mean, there's a lot of like more natural things you can do. A lot of the regular over the counters have a lot of extra chemicals in that aren't good either, but some kind of natural bug repellent would be a good thing to do. And you know, if you can limit your time in heavily wooded areas, I mean, it's good. I'm all about nature and that kind of thing. There's a lot of health benefits too, but you just got to really be careful because, like I said, the numbers of these are increasing, and the biggest thing is prevention. And I will tell you, like, let's talk a little more specifically about like the course with alpha-gal, because preventing re-exposure if you do get it is a huge thing. Typically, with alpha-gal, you can get to the point where you can have meat in some of these dairies that affect people again. Usually it's going to take anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So it's a wide time frame there. And the biggest thing is you got to avoid all these. I've talked to people recently and they'll be like, well, I can start to tolerate a little bite of beef or a little bite of this, and they still have a lot of these antibodies floating, and I'm like, just don't do it. You want to go completely cold turkey on that, and I'm a steak lover, so I'd literally lose my mind if I got alpha-gal, but you really want to be completely cold turkey on this so that those levels of those antibodies can go way down to the point that you don't have a reaction anymore. And like I said, that can take anywhere from 1 to 5 years. The thing is, if you're getting it all re-exposed to this Lone Star tick and more, these IgE levels of this antibodies is going to go way back up again. So this can actually, for some people, be a lifelong thing. I cannot, for the life of me, imagine not getting to eat like a good steak or beef or something like that for my life. I can't imagine that. But, you know, the biggest thing is when you actually have it, you need to completely avoid any of these triggers and being careful. Like I said, some of these meds, some of these vaccines, some of the like the capsules you get for some of your meds, it can be in anything. So you really have to be really careful with that. I was actually, you guys know I do the hormone treatments, and I was actually talking to one of my clients who had alpha-gal, and she's like, I think the progesterone that you gave me, I think the capsule is like beef. And I was like, really? Because like some of the collagens and things too can have that in there. I was like, yeah, or a lot of the collagens are beef collagens. So you got to be careful with like that is another common thing. But she said, yeah, the actual capsule is like a beef gelatin. And I was like, wow. So I had to call around to like 4 pharmacies and find one that compounded it with like a veggie capsule. So it's these crazy things you don't think of, but that can cause these reactions. So I'm going to give you a little case study here. I have a friend, a 60-year-old woman. She got bit by a Lone Star tick. She started having the symptoms, and it was about a month later. Okay. So she was doing okay. She was still trying to eat little bites here and there of stuff because she said it wasn't affecting her. But I was like, you got to not do that, you know, like what we just talked about. But she went to have some Penn Station the other day. And she wasn't thinking at all about Philly cheesesteak being, you know, this red meat beef. She wasn't thinking about it. Because it's not something she usually has. She doesn't eat a lot of fast food. So she consumed this like Philly cheesesteak bowl thing or sub or whatever it was. So it was about 3 or 4 hours later. And remember, I told you there's a delayed onset with these things. It was about 3 to 4 hours later. She was sitting there, and she said her hands started itching so bad she couldn't stand it. She was like rubbing it on the table. It was driving her crazy. And then she's like, I felt like my whole body started to like itch after that. And then I started breaking out in all these hives. And then my lips started swelling, and my throat was feeling bad. And she ended up having to give herself an EpiPen and go to the emergency room over it. So, milder symptoms of these alpha-gal reactions, the regular like hives, you can get GI upset, diarrhea, nausea, that kind of thing. But severe, they can cause anaphylaxis and they can kill people. And I actually have like 3 people close to me that have actually had anaphylactic reactions from alpha-gal. So this is no joke, and it's becoming very like common to see these things. So that's kind of a typical what it looks like course with alpha-gal. What can you do about it? Again, the biggest thing is to prevent ticks in the first place. If you get ticks, and you do have it, the second thing is to prevent that re-exposure, because you might be setting yourself up for a lifetime of no steak, no filet for you, okay? So those are the 2 biggies. But what can you do in the meantime? How can we support? So good immune support, okay? Vitamin C, zinc, that kind of thing. You want to support your immune system. It's trying to work this out, okay? You get a lot of, when you have inflammatory and immune reactions and histamine, it can really tear up your gut. It can cause leaking with the gut. It can cause a lot of issues there. So you kind of want to watch a lot of those histamine, the histamine stimulating foods, that kind of thing, like aged cheeses, certain like chocolates, alcohol, any of those things that are high histamine. There's also DOA medications. They're not medicated, but they're supplements, and they help break down histamine foods. So that might be something for short term you can use as well to kind of help. Now, also things there, omega-3s, quercetin, and curcumin or turmeric. They're very good at like anti-inflammatory, and they can help with these reactions as well. And so those are also some supplements that might be helpful during this. So gut, supporting the immune, watching the histamine responses. And then another thing that is gaining a lot of traction, and I want to mention, and I will say there's not a lot of like published literature on this right now, but there is actually a specific treatment with the acupuncture that you can do, and it involves a tiny needle in your ear. It's called SAAT, and don't ask me to remember what it stands for, but that's the actual acupuncture, SAAT. And they put a little needle in the ear, and it's supposed to be the spot that corresponds with that actual sugar molecule. And the point is supposed to help you actually leave this in. They said for like, you can leave it in for a few weeks even. And it's supposed to help your body regulate with this specific point to the sugar molecule, to where you may be able to start introducing things a little earlier. And this is anecdote, so I'm not quoting any specific research or anything like that, but I will tell you, I've known a couple of people personally that have done this, and they've been able to like completely cure this thing earlier with it, and I've had other people that haven't had that same amount of luck. So, this may be something where it's an area that they're studying, that they're doing some literature on. Again, this alpha-gal surge is kind of fairly new to us over the last couple decades, and so, they're kind of researching it, but that might be something to check out. It may be helpful, may help end things a little sooner. But avoidance of the tick bites, and then re-bites, if you do get it, is like the big prime thing. And of course, completely avoiding anything, any products, meds, vaccines, foods that have any of these sugars in them, the alpha-gal sugar, so that you're not causing those antibodies to rise and this to go on longer than it needs to. So that's kind of my little my little mini lecture on tick bites. Just watch it. It's tick season. These things are happening. For those of you who, have the black-legged and you're concerned about Lyme, I will tell you this. Most people, It's about 60 to 80%. If they do get Lyme, they're going to get that bullseye rash. It's erythema migrans is what it's called. And if you get the doxycycline treatment with that and treat it early, you're pretty good. If it's been on again less than 24 hours with Lyme specifically, we don't even need to treat you really. Your risk is like nil for that. But alpha-gal is not the same with that, and it's a completely different with this immune-mediated versus, again, introducing like a bacteria and things like that that you see with Lyme. So a little different mechanisms, but the point is these things are expanding, they're growing, they're around. Whether it's a conspiracy or the climate, I couldn't tell you, but the fact is it doesn't look like we're ridding ourselves of these things anytime soon. So just be aware that they're out there. And I guess I'll end with my little quote, as I always do. And this was, "The parasites live where the great have little secret sores." And that's Friedrich Nietzsche. We'll see you the next time.